Hi, wherever you are in the world today. I'm Jon Kirkman. I'm a journalist and a broadcaster based in the UK. And in these current times, of course, it's very difficult to do face to face interviews. And you've probably seen a lot of what we call remote interviews over the last few weeks. I'm sure there's going to be quite a few more to come. We're going to be talking about this today. No, not this t-shirt. The name of the album, Rick Wakeman's new album, which will be with us very soon. It's called The Red Planet. It's a concept album. And we're going to be talking to Rick at some point in the near future. But today, we're going to be talking to Lee Pomeroy, who is the bass player with the English Rock Ensemble, has been for quite a few years. Lee is an amazing musician. He's played with Rick. He's played with Anderson Raven Wakeman. He's played with Steve Hackett, played with ELO. He is a very, very in-demand musician. So I suppose without further ado, I should ask Lee to introduce us to the Red Planet documentary.
Hello, Lee Pomeroy of the English Rock Ensemble here, and welcome to the Red Planet documentary.
Now, of course, Rick does many concerts, both as a solo artist and plays solo piano shows, and he also plays with the band as well. The band is the English Rock Ensemble. Tell me a little bit about that.
I first met Rick 20 years ago, back in the year 2000. I knew Adam Wakeman, his son, already, and we were working on a Yes album together, a Yes tribute record that Adam was producing. So I played bass on that. And me and Adam got on great, and Adam was in his dad's band at the time. So when that recording was finished, Adam said to me, "Look, my dad's looking for a bass player. Do you fancy it?" So I said, "Absolutely, mate. Of course I do. You know, I'm a massive Yes fan, a massive Rick fan, and I know all the music anyway." So so Adam put in a good word for me. Rick gave me a call. And I went along to rehearsal with Rick and Adam and Tony Fernandez on drums, and we had Damien Wilson on vocals at the time, and it was fantastic. And that was in Glastonbury. We were playing at a festival, not the Glastonbury Festival, but a festival called the Hearts on Fire Festival, and we were supporting Cliff Richard. There's a pairing that you don't get these days. So yeah, it was Cliff Richard and us. And I think we only played for about an hour and 20 minutes or something like that, which was probably 2 songs, you know. But I had a fantastic time at that first rehearsal. I remember when Rick first walked in, being completely starstruck, and I couldn't believe what a lovely bloke he was and what a funny guy. And then we sat down and had, you know, tea and lunch, and he started telling us all the stories about Yes and stuff, and I was absolutely in my element. So, and it was at that rehearsal actually, we were playing Starship Trooper, and there was a section where Rick went wrong on the chords. So during the song I crept over to him and said to him, "Oh, by the way, the chords in that section, you know, D, A, C, G, this is Rick's arrangement." And from that day forward, they've always called me the Oracle, because apparently I'm the one who remembers all the arrangements, because Rick couldn't remember it, and he was the one who arranged that version of Starship Trooper. So yeah, that very first day of rehearsal, I got the nickname Oracle, and it's stuck ever since. So they still call me Oracle to this day.
Can you tell us then what is your favourite Rick Wakeman album? Or would that be giving too much away? No, I'm kidding. What's your favourite Rick album? And you can include the albums that you've been involved with as well.
My favourite Rick album, obviously apart from all the ones that I'm on, is Six Wives of Henry VIII, just because I've known it for so long, since I was about 4 or 5, I think, when my brother started playing it. And as I say, I used to look in that record sleeve and look at the Mellotron and all that stuff. So I've been listening to that music for 47, 48 years, something like that. So definitely Six Wives, because that's the one I've known the longest and got a special place in my heart.
When you were coming up as a young player, everybody has their influences and points of reference. Was there anything that sort of excited you and influenced you by Rick's playing, either with Yes or with his solo career? He made a great many solo albums, very, very exceptional solo albums, it must be said, in the 70s. Was there any influence there for you?
Rick's been a massive influence on my playing since I was really little, actually. When I first started listening to music, my brother had the Six Wives of Henry VIII album, and I used to like to open up the album and look inside at all the keyboards and the equipment that he had. And he had a mixer there, and he had a thing called a frequency counter. And I remember seeing all that stuff and thinking, wow, that looks incredible. And then later on, when I was about 13, I really started to get into bands like Yes and Rick's music and Genesis, Gentle Giant, and these bands, and started to play that music. Rick's keyboard playing and his mellotron playing especially always stood out for me as one of the most incredible things I'd ever heard, because it was so expansive, the way he would use the piano and the mellotron together. It was like listening to an orchestra, and with Chris Squire's bass playing underneath a lot of that music, Rick kind of showed me how to expand a small idea and take it and expand it into a much more interesting and much larger idea. So he's influenced me hugely throughout my life. I'm still a huge fan of Rick's playing. Whenever I listen to Heart of the Sunrise, just the mellotron part in that still gives me shivers whenever I hear it. And when I got to play it on stage with Rick and John Anderson and Trevor Rabin in ARW, Yes, that was an amazing dream come true for me, because not only was I playing the bass part, but if I turned to my left, I could see the guy that wrote the part, Rick, standing there playing the mellotron sound. So yeah, he's an enormous influence on me musically, not as a person. Awful man.
Well, let's look at your particular, if you like, input into the album, Lee. Did you actually come up with the bass lines, or were they written down for you? In other words, did you have quite a personal input into the creation of the album, or was it all kind of laid out for you just to play?
Well, I'm glad you've asked me that question. That's a good question. Some of them are improvised and some of them are written out for us. It depends on the track. Some of them are sort of based around a riff or a series of riffs. But for the most part, I think Rick likes us to put our own stamp on things. So there's a lot of improvisation, and we can play around with the track and try things out and send him ideas, and he can give them the thumbs up and or the thumbs down or whatever he sort of feels. But it gives us a lot of space to come up with our own ideas, which is a fantastic way to work. It makes us feel more involved in the album, etc. And we can put our own sort of ideas in and come up with little ideas for sections as well. So that's always really interesting. There was one track in particular called Valles Marineris, which had an unusual rhythm. It had a 3-bar riff. It was a snare drum part over the time signatures of 5, 5/4, 6/4 and 7/4. So bar 5, bar 6, bar 7. So I wanted to come up with a riff that went along with that rhythm, but had its own flavour, playing underneath the chords that Rick was playing. It was quite dramatic chords. So I've got the track here, and I'll play you what Rick sent as a rhythm part, and then you can hear what I played on the bass over the top of it. So here's the rhythm. And here comes the bass. So I sent that to Rick, and he absolutely loved the riff, so the riff stayed in. And you know, now I've got to come to remember it if we go and play it live, which is going to be a bit tricky, because I'm going to have to go back and work it out again, because I can't quite remember it. But I think it was something like this. This is the bass I played it on. This is my trusty Yamaha fretless bass that I paid about 200 quid for on eBay a few years ago. And I think this is how the riff goes, if memory serves. And that's how it goes, kind of. It's better on the record. I practiced it a bit more.
Of course, the global pandemic with this coronavirus or COVID-19 is causing a lot of people problems, notably people gathering together to go to concerts, and also the self-isolation. So it's very difficult for musicians to go out and perform. However, virus permitting, how would you like to see this particular project developing with Rick? I mean, the Red Planet is a really nice concept, and I really think it would translate well into the live arena. Would you like to see some live shows around the album, if that's at all possible at some point in the future?
I'd love to see the Red Planet project develop into some live shows. I think that'd be incredible, because it's such a great album to play. I've had a brilliant time playing on all these tracks. Some real head-scratching moments as well has driven me and Dave Calhoun crazy. I know that much, because we got together a couple of times to work stuff out, and we were sitting there, what the hell is the timing on this, you know? But I love all that stuff. It's like a puzzle that you got to unlock. So I've had a great time recording on this album. I put a lot of my favourite instruments on there. My old Fender Jazz, my Rickenbacker, my Perennial Ball Stingray, and my Taurus pedals, etc. So I'd love to take that music that we've now put onto record and take it live and play live shows, because I think it would really come into its own in a live setting, because it sounds really good on there. But if we got into a rehearsal room, rehearsed it and took it live, I think it'd take on another dimension entirely. So I'd love to see this develop into some live shows. Maybe even a range of soft cheeses.
Now, I'm going to ask you something here, Lee. You don't have to answer this. You can take the fifth if you want. Have you got any funny stories about working with Rick, and try and keep them clean?
I remember back in 2001 being on tour in South America with Rick and the ERE, and his son Adam had bought some of these comedy false teeth. And they were so funny that I asked him to get me some, and Tony Fernandez, the drummer, said, "Oh, get me some too." And then when Rick saw him, he said, "Oh, they're hilarious. You've got to wear them for the press conference this afternoon." "What press conference?" He said, "Well, we're doing a press conference for these shows in Buenos Aires. You know, we're doing 2 nights at Grand Rex Theatre, so we're going to do a live TV press conference." He said, "You've got to wear those." "We can't wear them." He said, "Be brilliant. It'd be hilarious." So Adam, me and Tony, we turn up wearing our false teeth. The problem was, when anyone directed a question at either me, Adam or Tony, when we started to speak, no one could understand us because of these false teeth we had in. So we're dribbling and trying to get the words out. It sounded absolutely ridiculous. But the worst bit was, or the best bit, was every time we looked over at Rick, when Rick had to answer a question, he was just in tears of laughter. He just could not get the words out, because he was just looking at Adam and me and Tony and just rolling around on the floor laughing. So the whole thing was an absolute waste of time. And it all because of Rick said, well, you got to wear those on the live press conference, because he just thought it was too funny. He thought it was much better that it was a funny press conference than actually have any information in it. So I don't think anyone learned anything at that press conference, but we had a real good laugh. And that's the main thing, as you know. Yeah, so that's one day I won't forget.
Well, I think that's about it. That was pretty painless, I think. Well, I hope it was anyway. Thanks for talking to us today, Lee. We really look forward to seeing the album come out, and hopefully at some point, look forward to seeing you and Rick and the rest of the guys in the English Rock Ensemble performing some Red Planet shows. Thanks for talking to us today.
Capcom, King Flight transmitting in the blind. We are go for the second orbit.